The massive space station Kepler-7 floated like a metal city among the stars. Inside its gleaming corridors, beings from 100 different worlds lived and worked together. The station served as a neutral meeting place where the Galactic Council held its sessions. Today, however, something had gone terribly wrong. In the deepest level of the station, behind layers of reinforced titanium and energy shields, angry roars echoed through the halls. The sound made every alien within a mile radius tremble with fear. Even the mighty Kragnor warriors, who stood 9 feet tall and could crush steel with their bare hands, stayed far away from that section. The source of the terror was a creature no bigger than a house cat. But this was no ordinary animal. This was Zeke's Thara, the last hatchling of the Emperor Dragon bloodline. Her scales shimmered like liquid gold, and her eyes burned with the fury of dying stars. Despite being barely 3 days old, she possessed the raw power to level entire buildings. Commander Vexital of the Andromedan fleet paced nervously outside the containment area. His blue skin had turned pale with worry. As the senior officer responsible for the hatchling's safety, he faced an impossible situation. The dragon's parents had died defending their world from space pirates. Before dying, the Dragon Emperor had entrusted his only child to the Galactic Council, making them promise to keep her safe until she came of age. But nobody had expected the hatchling to be so explosive. "Report!" Vexital barked at his assistant, a spider-like being called Thrix. "Sir, the hatchling has destroyed another containment unit." Thrix clicked nervously. "That makes 7 today. The energy readings are off the charts. She's not eating, not sleeping, just rage and destruction." Vexital's forearms crossed in frustration. "Have the Malarian mind healers made any progress?" "They refuse to go near her, sir. They say her mental screams are too painful." The Zenithian beast tamers also gave up after she melted their equipment with her breath. Through the viewing window, they could see the small dragon throwing herself against the walls. Her tiny claws left deep gouges in the reinforced metal. Every few seconds, she would let out a sound that was part roar, part sob. It was clear she was in pain, but not the physical kind. "She's mourning," said a soft voice behind them. Vexital spun around to see Dr. Sarah Chen, the station's only human resident. She was tiny, even by human standards, barely reaching Vexital's waist. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the brown uniform of the station's research division. "Dr. Chen, you shouldn't be here," Vexital said firmly. "This area is restricted. The creature is extremely dangerous." Sarah stepped closer to the window, studying the distressed hatchling. "She's not a creature. She's a child who just lost her parents. Look at her behavior. She's not trying to escape or hunt. She's having a tantrum because she's scared and alone." The Andromedan commander's expression softened slightly. Humans were known for their unusual ability to understand emotions, but this situation was beyond anyone's help. "Dr. Chen, I appreciate your insight, but 17 different species have tried to calm her. The empathic Zularians couldn't even get close without collapsing from the psychic feedback. What could possibly make you think?" "Because I've been where she is," Sarah interrupted gently. "I lost my parents when I was young too. I know what that kind of pain feels like." Thrix scuttled forward on his 8 legs. "But Dr. Chen, she's a dragon, an apex predator from birth. Her species conquered half the galaxy before they became peaceful. She could kill you with a sneeze." Sarah smiled sadly. "Size and power don't matter when you're hurting inside. Pain is pain, whether you're human or dragon." As if responding to their conversation, the hatchling suddenly stopped her rampage. She pressed her small face against the wall closest to where they stood. Her golden eyes, large and luminous, seemed to look right through the reinforced barrier. For a moment, her anger faded, replaced by something that looked almost like hope. "She can sense us," Sarah whispered. "Dragons have incredible perception. She knows we're here." Vexital shook his head firmly. "Absolutely not. I cannot allow you to enter that containment area. The risk is too great." "Tom, Commander, with respect, your current approach isn't working. She's getting weaker. When did she last eat? Thrix checked his tablet. 4 days ago. Before the incident that made her an orphan. Sarah's heart clenched. She's going to die if someone doesn't help her process this grief. And when an emperor dragon dies from emotional trauma, the psychic backlash can destroy everything within 100 miles. The color drained from Vexistal's face. He hadn't considered that possibility. Dragon deaths were rare, but the few recorded instances had indeed caused massive destruction. What are you proposing? Let me try to reach her. Humans have a saying. Sometimes the smallest key opens the biggest door. Maybe what she needs isn't power or authority. Maybe she just needs someone who understands. The hatchling pressed both tiny paws against the wall now, and her crying became more pronounced. It was a heartbreaking sound that made even the hardened security officers look away. Sir, Thrix said quietly, the emotional resonance is affecting the entire station. 3 alien species have already requested emergency transport away from Kepler 7. If this continues, we could have a complete evacuation on our hands. Vextal looked at the small human woman, then at the suffering dragon child. Every instinct told him this was madness. Humans were fragile, weak by galactic standards. They had no natural armor, no psychic abilities, no special resistance to dragon fire. But they did have one thing that had surprised the galaxy since their first contact 50 years ago. They never gave up on those who needed help. The safety protocols would have to be maximum level, he said slowly. Emergency teleportation on standby. The first sign of aggression. She won't hurt me, Sarah said with quiet confidence. How can you possibly know that? Sarah looked through the window at the golden hatchling, who had now curled up in a small ball against the wall. Because she's not angry anymore. Look at her. She's given up. That's worse than anger. That's despair. The commander studied the dragon more carefully. Sarah was right. The violent thrashing had stopped. The hatchling now lay still, occasionally shuddering with what could only be described as sobs. If I allow this, Vextal said carefully, you understand that you would be the first non-dragon to ever interact with an emperor dragon hatchling. There are no protocols, no safety procedures, no guaranteed outcomes. I understand. And you still want to try? Sarah nodded without hesitation. Someone has to. She's just a baby who needs help. After several tense minutes of discussion with the station's safety board, Vexital reluctantly agreed to a modified approach. They would lower the energy barriers gradually, allowing Sarah to communicate with the hatchling through the reinforced window first. If the dragon showed any positive response, they could consider further steps. As the first barrier deactivated, the hatchling immediately lifted her head. Her golden eyes locked onto Sarah's brown ones through the transparent aluminum window. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Sarah did something that made every alien in the corridor freeze with terror. She smiled and pressed her own small hand against the window, directly opposite where the dragon's paw rested. Hello, little one, Sarah said softly. My name is Sarah. I'm here to help. The hatchling tilted her head, studying this strange, small creature who showed no fear. Slowly, carefully, she pressed her other paw against the window, matching Sarah's hand position. For the first time in days, the dragon's eyes stopped burning with rage and began to shimmer with something else entirely. Curiosity. Remarkable, breathed Thrix. She's responding to the human's calm presence. But Vexistal noticed something else. Around Sarah's feet, small potted plants that decorated the corridor had begun to grow visibly larger. The metal walls near her seemed to gleam brighter. Whatever was happening between the human and the dragon, it was affecting the environment around them. Dr. Chen, he said cautiously, are you experiencing any unusual sensations? Sarah nodded, never taking her eyes off the hatchling. She's trying to communicate. I can't understand the words, but I can feel her emotions. She's so lonely, Commander. She doesn't understand why her parents didn't come back. The dragon made a soft sound, almost like a purr mixed with a whimper. It was the first non-aggressive noise she had made since arriving at the station. "She trusts you," Vextal observed with amazement. "In all my years of military service, I have never seen anything like this." Sarah carefully moved her hand in a small wave. The hatchling immediately mimicked the gesture with her paw, then made what could only be described as a dragon smile. "We're going to be friends, aren't we, little one?" Sarah whispered. As if in answer, the dragon began to glow with a soft, warm light. The harsh, fluorescent lighting of the corridor seemed to grow gentler, and the air itself felt somehow cleaner and more peaceful. For the first time since the tragedy began, hope flickered in Commander Vexistal's hearts. Perhaps the impossible was about to become possible. Perhaps a tiny human really could succeed where the galaxy's greatest experts had failed. But as Sarah continued her gentle interaction with the dragon hatchling, none of them noticed the new readings appearing on Thrix's monitoring equipment. The energy signatures were unlike anything previously recorded. Something was awakening within the dragon, something that had been dormant until this moment. And in the depths of space, far from Kepler 7, ancient sensors that had slept for millennia began to stir. The psychic resonance between human and dragon was sending ripples across the galaxy, attracting attention from beings who had thought the Emperor Dragon bloodline was finally extinct. The real test was yet to come. 3 hours had passed since Sarah first made contact with the dragon hatchling. The results were nothing short of miraculous. The small golden creature had stopped her destructive behavior entirely, and now responded eagerly to Sarah's presence. Every time the human approached the viewing window, the dragon would rush over and press her tiny snout against the barrier. Commander Vexital watched in amazement as Sarah taught the hatchling simple games. She would tap patterns on the window, and the dragon would copy them with her claws. When Sarah held up different colored objects, the hatchling would breathe small puffs of flame in matching colors. "The energy readings have stabilized completely," Thrix reported, his 8 eyes glued to his instruments. "Her stress hormones are dropping to normal levels." "Sir, I think the human has actually calmed an Emperor Dragon." But their success was about to be interrupted. The corridor's communication system crackled to life with an urgent announcement. "All department heads report to the main conference room immediately. Priority Alpha situation." Vextal's face grew grim. Priority Alpha meant only one thing: imminent danger to the entire station. "Dr. Chen, I need you to come with me." "Thrix, maintain monitoring protocols." Sarah reluctantly stepped away from the window. The hatchling immediately began making distressed sounds, pressing both paws against the barrier. "It's okay, little one," Sarah called back. "I'll return soon, I promise." The dragon tilted her head at the word promise, as if she understood its meaning. In the conference room, beings from dozens of species filled the circular chamber. The air buzzed with nervous energy from various alien communication methods. At the center, Admiral Korthax of the Galactic Defense Force stood before a massive holographic display. 3 hours ago, our long-range sensors detected multiple ships approaching Kepler 7, the Admiral announced. "These vessels belong to the Void Hunters." A collective gasp echoed through the room. The Void Hunters were the most feared pirates in the galaxy. They were the same group that had killed the dragon hatchling's parents. "How many ships?" asked Ambassador Felnara, her crystalline form shimmering with worry. 17 battlecruisers and their support fleet. "They'll reach us in approximately 6 hours. Commander Vexital felt his blood run cold. "They're coming for the hatchling," Admiral Korthax nodded grimly. "Intelligence suggests they believe the young dragon is the key to locating the legendary dragon treasure worlds. With her parents dead, she's the only one who might know their locations." Dr. Sarah Chen raised her small hand. Most of the aliens in the room hadn't noticed her presence until now. "Excuse me," she said politely, "but the hatchling is just a baby. She couldn't possibly know anything about treasure worlds." A snake-like being called Susthera hissed in disagreement. "Human, you do not understand. Emperor dragons are born with genetic memories. The knowledge of their ancestors flows in their blood. Even a hatchling carries the secrets of their entire lineage." Sarah's heart sank. No wonder the little dragon seemed so intelligent. She wasn't just dealing with an ordinary baby animal. "What are our options?" Vextal asked. Admiral Korthax manipulated the holographic display, showing the approaching enemy fleet. "We can evacuate the station and try to escape. But the Void Hunters have faster ships. We can fight, but Kepler 7 is a civilian station with minimal defenses." Or what? Pressed Ambassador Felnara. "We could try to wake the hatchlings' inherited memories ourselves. If we can learn the location of the dragon treasure worlds, we might be able to negotiate with the Void Hunters." "Absolutely not." Sarah stood up so quickly her chair nearly tipped over. "That's exactly what those pirates want. Besides, forcing a traumatized child to relive ancestral memories could destroy her mind completely." The room fell silent. Many of the aliens had never heard a human speak with such authority. A towering megaloid delegate rumbled his displeasure. "Human, your emotional attachment to the creature clouds your judgment. The needs of millions outweigh the welfare of one dragon." "Her name is Zixthara," Sarah said firmly. "And she's not one dragon. She's the last of her bloodline. If we let the Void Hunters take her, or if we damage her mind trying to exploit her memories, we'll be responsible for the extinction of one of the galaxy's most ancient species." Admiral Korthax studied the small human woman. "Dr. Chen, what would you suggest?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Give me time with her. Let me try to help her access her memories naturally, without force. Dragons are incredibly intelligent. If I can help her understand the situation, she might choose to help us herself." Several delegates began arguing at once. The idea seemed preposterous to most of them. "The human is naive," declared the megaloid. "Dragons, even young ones, only respond to strength and dominance." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah replied calmly. "I've spent the last 3 hours with her. Dragons don't respond to dominance. They respond to genuine respect and understanding." Commander Vexistal stood up. "I support Dr. Chen's approach. We have 6 hours. If traditional methods could solve this, someone would have succeeded by now. Let the human try." After much debate, the council reluctantly agreed to give Sarah 4 hours to work with the hatchling. If no progress was made, they would proceed with forced memory extraction. Sarah hurried back to the containment area, her mind racing. She had to find a way to communicate complex ideas to a baby dragon while helping her process the trauma of losing her parents. It seemed impossible, but she had to try. When she entered the corridor, the hatchling immediately perked up and rushed to the window. Her golden eyes were bright with happiness at Sarah's return. "Hello again, little one," Sarah said softly. "We need to have a very important conversation." She sat down in front of the viewing window and began to explain the situation as simply as possible. To her amazement, the dragon listened intently, occasionally tilting her head or making small sounds that seemed like questions. "Bad dragons are coming," Sarah said, using hand gestures to illustrate. "They want to hurt you, like they hurt your mommy and daddy." The hatchling's expression grew sad at the mention of her parents. She curled up in a small ball, and her golden glow dimmed. "I know you miss them," Sarah continued gently. "But they gave you something very special before they died. They gave you their memories, their knowledge. Do you understand?" The dragon looked up, confusion in her large eyes. Sarah tried a different approach. "Close your eyes, little one. Think about your mommy and daddy. Can you remember anything they told you? Any pictures in your mind?" The hatchling closed her eyes and concentrated. Suddenly, her entire body began to glow brighter. Strange symbols appeared on her scales, shifting and changing like living text. "That's it," Sarah encouraged. "You're accessing your inherited memories." But something was wrong. The dragon began to tremble, then shake violently. The symbols on her scales started flashing in distress patterns. Through the viewing window, Sarah could see that the hatchling was experiencing something traumatic. The genetic memories weren't just knowledge. They included the emotions and experiences of her ancestors. She was reliving battles, witnessing the destruction of worlds, feeling the pain of every dragon who had died. "Stop," Sarah called out. "You don't have to see all of that. Just focus on my voice." But the hatchling couldn't hear her anymore. She was lost in a whirlwind of ancestral trauma. Without thinking, Sarah made a decision that horrified every alien in the monitoring station. She ordered the containment barriers to be lowered. Dr. Chen. No, Vextal shouted through the communication system. You'll be killed. She needs help, Sarah replied, stepping into the containment chamber. The moment Sarah entered the room, the air crackled with psychic energy. The dragon's emotional distress was so intense, it felt like standing in a hurricane. But Sarah pushed forward, fighting against the overwhelming sensations. Zeexthera, she called out, using the dragon's true name for the first time. Listen to me, little one. You're not alone anymore. The hatchling's eyes snapped open, glowing like miniature suns. For a terrifying moment, Sarah thought the dragon might attack her in confusion. Instead, Zeexthera rushed forward and pressed against Sarah's legs, seeking comfort. The moment they touched, something extraordinary happened. Sarah found herself connected to the dragon's mind, experiencing the inherited memories alongside her. But instead of being overwhelmed by the trauma, Sarah's human perspective allowed her to process the information differently. She saw the dragon treasure worlds, not as locations to be conquered, but as sanctuaries where dragons had hidden their most precious possessions: their eggs, their knowledge, and their culture. The treasure wasn't gold or jewels, but the preservation of their entire civilization. I understand now, Sarah whispered, stroking the dragon's golden scales. The treasure worlds are safe havens. Your parents weren't just protecting wealth, they were protecting the future of your people. Through their psychic connection, Zeexthera began to understand as well. The memories were no longer terrifying glimpses of the past, but important lessons about her heritage and responsibility. Together, human and dragon sifted through millennia of inherited knowledge. Sarah's empathy and emotional intelligence helped the hatchling process information that would have driven an adult dragon to madness. In the monitoring station, Thrix watched his instruments with growing excitement. Commander, the readings are incredible. The human's presence is stabilizing the dragon's psychic emanations. They're actually sharing the mental load of processing the inherited memories. Vextal stared in wonder at the scene before him. The tiny human woman sat cross-legged on the floor with a baby emperor dragon curled in her lap like an enormous, golden kitten. Both of their eyes glowed with the same soft light as they shared an experience that should have been impossible. Sir, Thrix called urgently, the Void Hunters have increased their speed. They'll be here in 2 hours, not 6. Vextal activated the communication system. Dr. Chen, we're running out of time. Have you learned anything that can help us? Sarah looked up from her meditation with Zeexthera. Her eyes were bright with new understanding. I know where the treasure worlds are, she said calmly. And I know why the Void Hunters can never be allowed to find them. The dragon hatchling stirred in her arms and spoke her first words in standard galactic. Sarah, help, save, family. Every alien in the monitoring station felt their hearts skip a beat. The last emperor dragon had chosen her guardian. And it wasn't another dragon. It was a small human woman who had shown her that even the smallest beings could carry the greatest courage. But their triumph was overshadowed by a new alarm. The Void Hunter fleet had arrived early, and they were already surrounding Kepler-7. The real battle was about to begin. The Void Hunter fleet surrounded Kepler-7 like a pack of metal predators. Their ships were black as space itself, covered in spikes and weapon arrays that spoke of countless battles and conquered worlds. The largest vessel, the Dreadclaw, positioned itself directly in front of the station's main docking bay. In the station's command center, Admiral Korthax received the incoming transmission with dread. The holographic image that appeared showed Captain Malarix, the most feared Void Hunter in the galaxy. His species was called the Drakthul, reptilian beings whose scales had been replaced with cybernetic armor after too many battles. Station Commander, Malarix hissed, his mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. Surrender the dragon hatchling, and we will allow your pathetic collection of weaklings to live. Refuse, and we will take her from your burning wreckage. Admiral Korthax stepped forward. Captain Malarix, this station is under Galactic Council protection. Any attack would constitute an act of war against 47 member worlds. The pirate captain's laugh was like grinding metal. The Council is weak, Admiral. They care more about their precious laws than protecting their own. Hand over the dragon, and no one needs to die today. And if we refuse, then everyone dies today. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. In the containment area, Sarah held Zixthara close as they felt the station shudder under the weight of the surrounding ships. The dragon hatchling was no longer the terrified, angry creature from days before. Through her connection with Sarah, she had processed her grief and begun to understand her incredible heritage. "They're here for me," Zixthara said in her small voice, her words now clear and standard galactic. "The bad dragons who hurt my family. They're not dragons," Sarah corrected gently. "They're something much worse. They're beings who have forgotten how to care about anyone but themselves." Commander Vexital approached them cautiously. Even after witnessing their bond, he still found it surreal to see a human holding casual conversation with an emperor dragon. "Dr. Chen, the situation is critical. The Void Hunters are demanding we surrender Zixthara immediately. If we refuse, they'll destroy the station and everyone on it." Sarah looked up at him with calm determination. "They can't have her, Commander. Do you understand what the treasure worlds really are? Repositories of dragon wealth, according to our databases." Zixthara shook her golden head. "Not treasure like shiny rocks," she explained in her childlike way. "Treasure like family things. Safe places where dragon babies sleep until they're ready to wake up." Sarah nodded grimly. "The treasure worlds are nurseries, Commander. There are thousands of dragon eggs hidden across the galaxy, waiting for the right time to hatch. Zixthara carries the location of every single one in her genetic memory." The full horror of the situation hit Vexital immediately. If the Void Hunters get that information, they could find and destroy every potential dragon before they're even born, Sarah finished. The Emperor Dragon bloodline wouldn't just be endangered, it would be completely extinct. Thrix scuttled over, his instruments beeping frantically. "Sir, the Void Hunters are powering up their weapons. They're preparing to fire on the station." Vexital activated his communication device. "Admiral, we need immediate evacuation procedures for all civilians." The Admiral's voice crackled back. "Negative, Commander. The Void Hunters have us completely surrounded. No ships can leave without being destroyed." Sarah stood up, still holding Zixthara in her arms. The little dragon had grown slightly larger over the past few hours, now about the size of a small dog. But she still preferred to stay close to her human friend. "There might be another way," Sarah said quietly. "What do you mean?" Vexital asked. Sarah looked down at Zixthara, who nodded encouragingly. "Show them," the dragon whispered. "Zixthara's inherited memories don't just contain the locations of the treasure worlds," Sarah explained. "They also contain something else. The combat knowledge of every emperor dragon who ever lived." Vexital's eyes widened. "You mean, she knows how to fight like her ancestors? But she's still just a baby. She needs someone to help her access that knowledge safely." Sarah paused. "She needs me. Dr. Chen, what you're suggesting is impossible. Humans don't have the psychic capacity to channel dragon combat abilities." "Normally you'd be right," Sarah admitted. "But Zixthara and I have something unique. We have a bond built on trust, empathy, and mutual understanding. Those are human strengths that can amplify dragon abilities in ways never seen before." Thrix's instruments suddenly went crazy. "Sir, energy readings from the dragon are spiking again, but this time they're controlled, focused." Zixthara began to glow with golden light. But instead of the chaotic energy from before, this radiance was purposeful and calm. Sarah felt the dragon's power flowing through their psychic connection, and amazingly, her human mind didn't break under the pressure. Instead, it adapted, organizing the raw dragon energy into something manageable. "We need to get to the station's central power core," Sarah said, her voice carrying new authority. "If Zixthara can channel her abilities through the station's energy grid, We might be able to create a defensive field strong enough to hold off the Void Hunters. But humans aren't compatible with station power systems, Vextal protested. Sarah smiled. Humans are compatible with anything if we're determined enough. Besides, I won't be interfacing directly. Zixthera will handle the energy manipulation. I'll just help her stay focused and calm. As they made their way to the power core, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The Void Hunters had started their attack, sending warning shots that shook the entire structure. In the power core chamber, massive energy conduits hummed with electricity. Sarah and Zixthara approached the central control console, which was designed for technicians with multiple arms and advanced training. I don't know how to operate these systems, Sarah admitted. Zixthara looked up at her with bright, confident eyes. That's okay, Sarah friend. Dragons don't use machines to make power. We are power. The little dragon placed her paws on the central console, and immediately the entire chamber filled with golden light. Energy readings throughout the station began climbing to unprecedented levels, but something was wrong. Alarms started sounding from the console itself. System overload. Thrix's voice came through the communication system. The station's power grid can't handle that much energy input. Sarah realized the problem immediately. Zixthara had the power, but she didn't understand the mechanical limitations of artificial systems. Without proper regulation, she would overload the station's circuits and cause a total power failure. Little one, you need to be gentler, Sarah said, placing her hands over Zixthara's paws. Think of the station like a friend who can't carry as much as you can. You have to share your strength slowly. Through their psychic bond, Sarah helped the dragon understand the concept of electrical resistance and power distribution. It wasn't about forcing raw energy into the system, but about finding the right rhythm and flow. Gradually, the chaotic energy readings stabilized. Golden light began flowing through the station's corridors like living electricity. Every alien on board felt a surge of warmth and confidence they had never experienced before. Incredible! Admiral Korthax's voice echoed through the communication system. Our shields have increased in strength by 3,000%. Whatever you two are doing, keep it up. Outside the station, the Void Hunters had begun their full attack. Their massive weapons fired streams of destructive energy that could normally punch through a space station's hull like tissue paper. But when the beams hit Kepler-7's shields, they simply dissolved harmlessly against the golden barrier. Captain Molarix stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. Impossible! Our weapons are designed to destroy battlecruisers. How is a civilian station deflecting them? Captain, his weapons officer reported nervously. I'm reading massive energy signatures from inside the station. The power levels they're beyond our measurement capabilities. In the power core chamber, Sarah could feel Zixthara's energy flowing through the entire station. But more than that, she could feel the little dragon's growing confidence and joy. For the first time since losing her parents, Zixthara was using her abilities to protect others instead of lashing out in pain. Feel that? Sarah whispered. You're not just defending the station, you're protecting thousands of lives. Your parents would be so proud. Zixthara's glow intensified, and her voice carried new maturity. Sarah friend, I want to do more than just defend. I want to stop the bad ones from hurting anyone else. Ever, through the dragon's inherited memories, Sarah saw flashes of ancient battles where emperor dragons had done more than just fight. They had inspired entire civilizations to stand together against darkness. Then, let's show them what hope looks like, Sarah said. Working together, human creativity and dragon power began reshaping the station's energy output. Instead of just maintaining shields, they started broadcasting something entirely new. A psychic signal of peace, courage, and unity that spread outward from Kepler-7. Like ripples in space, the effect on the attacking fleet was immediate and shocking. Void Hunter crews, who had been conditioned to feel only greed and violence, suddenly experienced emotions they had forgotten. Some began to remember families they had lost or abandoned. Others felt the weight of all the innocent lives they had destroyed over the years. On the Dreadclaw, Captain Malarix clutched his head as unfamiliar feelings crashed through his augmented mind. What is happening to us? What? His crew members were looking around in confusion, many of them removing their weapons and staring at their hands as if seeing them for the first time. But not all of the Void Hunters were affected. The most hardened pirates, those who had completely replaced their natural emotions with cybernetic implants, remained focused on their mission. "Captain is compromised," shouted the Dreadclaw's second officer. "All ships, ignore the psychic interference and fire everything at the station. Destroy it now." The remaining functional ships opened fire with every weapon they possessed. The golden shields held, but Sarah could feel the enormous strain it was putting on Zeke's Thera. "Too much," the little dragon gasped. "Too heavy." Sarah realized they needed a different approach. Raw power wasn't enough. They needed strategy, creativity. They needed to think like humans. "Zeke's Thera, can you access your ancestors' memories about negotiation and diplomacy?" The dragon's eyes lit up. Dragons were not always fighters. Before the bad times, they were. Teachers? Exactly. Show them what they could be, instead of what they are. Together, they modified the psychic broadcast. Instead of just projecting peace, they began showing the Void Hunters glimpses of better lives they could choose. Former pirates remembered dreams of exploration, discovery, and building instead of destroying. The effect was like watching dominoes fall. Ship after ship in the enemy fleet began powering down their weapons. Crews that had known only violence for decades started to remember what it felt like to hope for something better. But the ships with the most cybernetically enhanced crews kept firing. Their assault was weakening the shields, and Sarah knew Zeke's Thera couldn't maintain this level of output much longer. "We need help," Sarah said, realizing the truth. "We can't do this alone. We can't do this alone." As if summoned by her words, Commander Vextal's voice came through the communication system. "Dr. Chen, the crews of the affected Void Hunter ships are asking for permission to help defend the station against their former allies." Sarah looked down at Zeke's Thera, who was breathing heavily but still glowing with determination. "What do you think, little one? Can we trust them?" The dragon closed her eyes, using her inherited knowledge to sense the intentions of the former pirates. They are different now. The bad feelings are going away. They want to choose good things. Then let's give them that choice. Working through the station's communication array, Sarah and Zeke's Thera sent a message to the converted ships. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, aboard Kepler 7. Any vessel that wishes to break free from the Void Hunters and start a new life, you are welcome to join us in defending this station." The response was immediate. More than half of the attacking fleet turned their weapons on the remaining hardcore Void Hunter ships. The space around Kepler 7 erupted in a three-way battle between the station's defenders, reformed pirates, and the last holdouts of the Void Hunter fleet. In the chaos, Captain Malarix managed to shake off the psychic effects through his cybernetic implants. Seeing his fleet turning against itself, he made a desperate decision. He launched himself in a one-man assault pod directly at the station's power core. "If I cannot have the dragon," he snarled, "then no one will." The assault pod smashed through the station's outer hull and began cutting its way toward the power core chamber. Sarah and Zeke's Thera felt the vibrations getting closer. "He's coming for us," Sarah said calmly. Zeke's Thera stood up, her small form suddenly radiating the dignity of her noble bloodline. "Then I will face him. Dragons do not run from bad ones." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We will face him. Together." When Captain Malarix finally cut through the last barrier and entered the power core chamber, he expected to find a helpless human woman and a baby dragon. Instead, he found something that stopped him in his tracks. Sarah stood protectively in front of Zeke's Thera, but the dragon was no longer hiding behind her. Both human and dragon glowed with the same golden light, their psychic bond so strong they seemed like two parts of the same being. "You will not harm any more innocent lives," Sarah said. her voice carrying the authority of ancient dragon kings. Malarix raised his weapon, but hesitated. The psychic pressure in the room was overwhelming, even for his enhanced mind. "You are just a human," he said. But his voice lacked conviction. "I'm a human who has been chosen by the last Emperor Dragon," Sarah replied. "I'm a human who has learned that the smallest acts of kindness can change the course of history. And I'm a human who will never let you destroy the future of an entire species." Zix Thara stepped forward, no longer the terrified hatchling from days before. She had grown during their shared experiences. Not just in size, but in wisdom and confidence. "You killed my parents," she said to Malarix. "You hurt many dragon families. But I will not kill you." "Malarix," the pirate captain laughed harshly. "Then you are weak. Like all dragons became before we destroyed them." "No," Zixthara replied calmly. "I am strong like Sarah Friend taught me. Strong enough to choose forgiveness over revenge. Strong enough to build instead of destroy." The little dragon began to glow brighter. And suddenly Malarix found himself experiencing something impossible. He was seeing his own life through the eyes of his victims. Every family destroyed, every world burned. Every act of cruelty came flooding back to him with the full emotional weight he had blocked out for decades. But instead of driving him mad with guilt, the vision showed him something else. The possibility of redemption. He saw himself helping rebuild the worlds he had damaged, using his knowledge of pirate operations to protect other innocent lives. Captain Malarix fell to his knees, his weapon clattering to the floor. What have I done?" he whispered. Sarah approached him slowly, offering her hand. "You've done terrible things," she said honestly. "But what you've done doesn't have to define who you choose to be from now on." Through her psychic link with Zixthara, Sarah helped the former pirate process his overwhelming emotions. It was the same technique she had used with the dragon, helping someone navigate trauma and guilt to find a path toward healing. Outside the station, the battle had ended. The few remaining unreformed void hunters had fled when they saw their captain's ship had been destroyed. The converted pirate vessels had formed a protective ring around Kepler-7, their crews eagerly awaiting orders from their new commanders. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. The Void Hunter threat, which had terrorized countless worlds for generations, simply disappeared overnight. Former pirates became explorers, teachers, and protectors. They used their intimate knowledge of criminal operations to help law enforcement agencies across dozens of systems. Captain Malarix himself became the leader of a new organization dedicated to finding and protecting the families of his former victims. He would spend the rest of his life trying to undo the damage he had caused. And while he could never fully succeed, his efforts saved thousands of lives. Zixthara grew quickly after their adventure, both physically and emotionally. Under Sarah's guidance, she learned to access her inherited memories without trauma, gaining the wisdom of her ancestors while maintaining her own unique perspective. She chose to remain at Kepler-7, working with the Galactic Council to establish new protections for endangered species across the galaxy. The location of the Dragon Treasure Worlds remained a secret known only to Sarah and Zixthara, but they began making carefully planned expeditions to the nursery planets, awakening dragon eggs when the conditions were right, and helping new hatchlings adjust to a galaxy very different from the one their parents had known. Sarah became known throughout the galaxy as the Dragon Speaker, the only non-dragon who could communicate with the ancient species on equal terms, but she never forgot the lesson that had made it all possible. Sometimes the smallest person in the room has the biggest heart. As for the friendship between human and dragon, it became the foundation for a new era of cooperation between species. Other worlds began sending their most troubled young beings to learn from Sarah's example, discovering that empathy and understanding could solve problems that force and authority could not. Years later, when asked about her incredible journey, Sarah would always smile and say the same thing. "I didn't save Zixthara. She saved herself. I just reminded her that she wasn't alone." And in the depths of space, on worlds where dragon eggs had slept for millennia, new life stirred. The Emperor dragons would rise again, not as conquerors, but as guardians of peace and wisdom. The galaxy had been changed forever by the bond between the smallest human and the mightiest dragon, proving that courage comes in all sizes, and hope can bloom in the darkest places.